Disclaimer. The material in this podcast is not to be taken as a replacement for therapeutic services. This is for entertainment purposes and represents the sole perspectives of the individuals involved. If you are experiencing an emergency, please contact the appropriate authorities or professionals. Oh, and welcome back to the TikDocs podcast. We are on season 2, episode 4. My name is Dr. Katelyn Baker. I am also known as that fat doctor, and I am going to be one of your co-hosts for the next half hour.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone listening. And I'm your other co-host, Dr. Terrell DeGans. Nice to meet you.
T, we're going to be talking about something today that I know you have a ton of experience with from like a very different perspective than I do. And I'm really excited about this. So we're going to be talking about traveling and how that changes you, changes your outlook on life. From my perspective, the lack of traveling, and for people in larger bodies, kind of the fears that come with traveling. So why don't we start off by tell me a little bit about your history, because I know that you've been all over the place and like traveling is like your jam, but I don't even where have you gone? Where are you going? What's happening?
Ooh, okay, let's see. It started when I was really young. I used to go to Trinidad and Tobago every summer, some spring breaks also. This is the before times, right? So I could just be sent into an airport. They would have some airport worker or flight attendant kind of watch over me, make sure I was okay. And I would just travel all the time. I got really comfortable in airports. To this day, I think I've been to about half of the states in the United States. And I've been to at least a dozen different countries. I have seen so much of the world, and I always want to see more. It seems like I always have another trip coming up, whether it's for a wedding, an event, or just to travel. So it's something that I really hold truly like dear to me, and I think it's an important part of my growth as a person.
Yeah, every time I feel like I talk to you, you're like, oh, I can't like meet this week. I'm gonna be out of town, or I'm going here. I have a wedding here, and I'm just like, damn, shawty.
It is wedding
back
season.
in New York. Where are you going?
It's post-COVID wedding season, so I'm bouncing all over the place.
Hey, wedding season. Yeah. So,
Well, what about you? Have you been anywhere? Do you travel?
no. No. I have been to quite a few of the states. Like I've done several road trips and things like that because that's a more comfortable way of traveling for me. I went to Jamaica once for my honeymoon, and had the stomach flu and threw up over 30 times while I was there. So I got outside of our hotel room one time on the last day to walk to the beach, and I almost passed out from to walking to the beach because I was so dehydrated. And yeah, so that's the only time I've ever been out of the country. Not a great experience. Not really making me want to go again. But I had some opportunities doing, what I do on social media. I had an opportunity. I did not sign an NDA for this one, so I think I could talk about it. If I can't, sorry, not sorry. But it was for, I was supposed to had the opportunity to go to Scotland for 6 weeks and live in this castle and film this show. And I didn't end up getting that. I got to the third round or so, and then they went in a different direction, which is fine. And I have another opportunity that I cannot talk about, but I can say that it's not in this country that I should find out about either this week or next week. So maybe, but probably not. I'm not holding my hopes out. So I want to talk about how does psychology tie into travel? And I think it does in different ways. So I want to hear your thoughts before I rattle on with mine.
So the first thing that comes to mind for me and what I think resonates most is the ability to engage with and understand different cultures and perspectives, and being able to really enmesh yourself in a different environment completely away from the norm that you're used to helps you to understand how people can be so very different and yet essentially the same. Um, I've told a lot of my friends and coworkers over the years that if I'm going to another country and I'm going to be living there, it's probably Spain. Partially because I love speaking in Spanish, but two, the culture there is so much more relaxing in my mind,
Mhm.
and the food is amazing. The ability to take a rest in the middle of the day where it seems like everything shuts down around the same time is
Fiesta.
it's really great. Um, and your day starts later. So for someone like me that loves sleeping in, being in that environment where you sleep in, you get a rest later in the day, you have amazing food, you can go anywhere, people are really warm and inclusive. And to be 100% frank, Spanish is significantly easier of a language than English is, which is a mishmash of nonsense. Um,
Yeah.
I just I love it there, and being in an environment like that, and going to Iceland, and going to Trinidad and Tobago, going to Antigua, going to all these other places that I've gone to, I get to experience what it's like to see how other people live.
Mhm.
And I try to invest myself not just in going to hotels, which is, it's nice, but trying to do an Airbnb, or we just go into a local friend's house, or do something where you get to feel like you're actually part of the community
Mhm.
and seeing what that community is actually like. And it makes such a huge difference in just how you see the world.
Yeah, I love that. I do also think there's a big difference between going to somewhere as like a tourist, like on, my trip to Jamaica was very like only saw the like this all-inclusive, extremely fancy resort, um, versus immersing yourself in the culture in different ways. So I think that is I think it changes like the definition of travel for some people. Like for some people, they I guess picture that you're going to some like five-star resort or something, but I can't ever see you doing that. I see you um, like getting a little, Airbnb or and just being there and just like fitting in automatically because I feel like that's one of your superpowers is you can just literally fit in anywhere, which is great. But I think that changes a lot about like even the definition of travel and how different that can be, right? Like most people think
Mhm,
traveling just means going to another place, but
mhm,
it's a lot more in depth than just that. And the experiences that you can get are there and available, but you have to want to do them.
mhm,
But also, if that's not your thing, like if you are someone who just wants to go to like a beautiful place, I have my own things about that when it's in like a less privileged country and you're just I have a whole spiel on that, which I don't know if we have the time. Um, that I was a part of that as well. And then I also know that there's the other side where the tourism is really helpful for the local economy and all that. So it's
mhm.
very like complex and nuanced. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Um, you did actually kind of bring something to mind for me. Is I know not everyone can travel internationally for so many reasons, right? But being a part of a community can be your own community or the one next to yours.
Mm,
And being able to experience that and really enmesh yourself in something that's not your typical is the whole point of this.
mm,
So, like I said, I've been to half the states in the United States, which is something that I actively try to do. I keep a list of them because I want to know what it's like to be in. I've been to Tennessee. I've been to the main ones like Florida and California. I've done all those as well. Um, but what is it like in Missouri? And we can get into a whole thing about that. But I know what it's like to be in what most people would never see unless they grew up there.
mm.
And that helps you to understand how people think and they feel and how things are different. If I didn't work in Indiana, I may not have ever seen Indiana, but there's a lot of great things to see there. And there's a lot of great things not to see
There's
there.
great things to see in Indiana. Did we
There,
go? Were we in the same state?
there are great things to see in Indiana. It may not be every part of Indiana, but there are great things to see. But you have to allow yourself to get a little bit uncomfortable to realize what other people find comfortable.
Yeah,
And even for me being in New York City, I can find any and every culture in New York City. So that really helps me to start that process.
yeah, yeah, for sure. You live like New York is so freaking diverse versus Indiana that's just like white people everywhere until you get to Gary. And then there's Chicago, obviously, which is much better. And we're talking about the very specific area of Indiana in which we lived, which I lived and T worked in, which is like this little corner of Indiana that's like, we say that we're in Chicago because everyone who lives there works in Chicago. It's like a very weird place to be. Anyway, I don't live there anymore, and neither does T. Where I'm at is no better and probably worse.
Growth.
I didn't have a whole lot of say. Let's just, yeah. But anyways, I think that like even being a therapist or a psychologist, having travel experiences and like working knowledge of cultures more than just what you can read in a book and what you can have relayed to you through someone else, and going there and experiencing things firsthand kind of gives you the upper hand in psychology, because part of what we do is trying to be culturally minded when we're giving treatment, right? Like some cultures have different what's the word I'm looking for? Just different practices than like the culture that we're acclimated to and live in. And some of the things that like we might find problematic in this culture is completely normal and respected in another culture, and having to be aware of all of those things. And you can't have cultural competency in every single culture, although some people swear that they do and that they're culturally competent, and not possible. But I think it's really cool to go and get experiences and then have like a whole other repertoire of what you can do and what populations you're willing to work on based on your own immersive experiences.
And I'll say working with different cultures has been illuminating, but also it validates other people to know that you have some working knowledge of it. And then you can, obviously amend as you speak to your new clients. Something that's been a shock for me in a sense has been working with like my Bangladeshi clients, because their perception of interactions with men and women is completely different than what we have here. And you have to respect the fact that what we may consider wrong here is there every day there. And we don't have to have the same values to understand that we are coming from different points of view, and trying to find that gray area and produce it is really helpful for them to know that I'm not trying to change them or, disrespect their culture, nor would I expect them to just do that to me. And being able to bridge that gap is so very important, especially from a therapeutic standpoint.
Yeah. And a lot of therapists aren't willing to look at their own like life and their thoughts and their values without pushing it on other people. And I think it's vitally important for our clients to have at least some degree of cultural competency. Like even just the very minimum basic would be fantastic. I know in my program, like there was a heavy emphasis on culture, and we had to take several courses, and really like I remember one assignment, I will never forget this assignment, was we had to immerse ourselves in another culture. And I had friends, like everyone could pick whatever they wanted to do, but there were friends who would go to the places in Chicago that were notorious, like Black populations and things like that. And these white little grad students walking down the street of like Harlem. It was just a very, very interesting, immersive experience that like I will never forget. I don't know where I was going with this, but that to say, it's important to step out of your own box and realize that the world doesn't revolve around you as you know it, and that there are so many other people out there, so many different cultures, lifestyles, beliefs, and that we're kind of in the minority here, like in the States with our belief systems and all of that. We're a very new country who, adapted from what we didn't want, and instead of envisioning what we did want, which is again a whole other can of worms. But all that to say, if you are a therapist and you say that you're culturally competent in all areas, you're not. And
Mhm.
B, if you have no idea about cultures, you need to do some research because you could be doing more damage than good to your clients.
And FYI for people that are not therapists or nor have any interest in being that, um, you can still be culturally competent, but understand that you're not getting the right information from television shows and movies and what you hear and see in the media. Those are all very personally directed to perpetuate these ideas of what other cultures and other people are like. There's such a huge variation in every culture. You're really not going to get a full understanding until you start interacting with those people.
Yeah, yeah, or going to those places,
Mhm.
which leads to me being absolutely terrified of travel.
Which is what I wanted to get into next. So that's perfect. What a great position. So
Yeah, yeah.
what's it like for you? Why is it so terrifying?
Okay, I've just had terrible vacations, like anywhere that I've gone ever. Like I've been sick or like things have gone terribly wrong, like a car broke down or like um drama with like my whoever I was like just never had like a good travel experience. So that's firstly.
Mm,
Secondly, is living in a larger body and traveling is honestly a fear that I hear from so many of my clients. So many of my clients are one of the first things they say when they're like, I work with people on not wanting to change their body for, society reasons. And one of the first things they say is like, but I want to be more comfortable on an airplane. Like,
mm,
I get that. I get that. I've flown. I flew to Florida in November, and I remember being just an absolute nervous wreck that I was going to be in a row with somebody, that I was going to be just an inconvenience, that people were going to be judgmental or mean, or that I wouldn't even fit, and just all of this anxiety leading up for weeks and weeks and weeks.
mhm.
So I did my research, and I want to encourage you if you're in a larger body, which I know a lot of our listeners are, because hello, that fat doctor. Um, do your research. I actually went that day, and it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I got like priority boarding. They gave me an extra seat for free. With I didn't even ask. They were just like, I mean, they just like looked me up and down and was like, here, and I was like, ouch, but thanks. Um, but it wasn't as terrible as I had ever imagined it to be, and it was actually one of my like first successful vacations. So, cha-ching on that. Um, but that's a very realistic fear, right? And you see videos on TikTok even of people being body shamed or fat shamed on planes, or people sitting next to them wanting to move seats or things like that. And when people internalize that and say like I need to change, I'm like, is it us that needs to change, or is it these airlines that make these teeny tiny seats to fit as many people as they can, to sell as many tickets as they can, to make as much money as they can?
Mhm.
Whose problem is it? But it doesn't take away the fact that it's still anxiety provoking and it's still scary. Not to mention, while traveling, I know I'm someone who, like, if there's not adequate seating where we're going, I have a chair that we call my throne that I will bring with me
Mhm.
to places if I don't know what the seating situation is, because my fat ass is not going to break any more chairs, okay? So the seating, like the amount of walking, I'm also someone who has had reconstructive ankle surgery on one foot, another foot that needs it and has active broken stuff in it that I walk on every day.
Oof.
Um, and like getting to places and seeing the accessibility, and like if it's too far of a walk, am I going to be able to like do this, because the next day I still want to get up and be able to move and not be like so swollen and in pain that I can't do anything. um,
Mhm.
so that's the other thing, is like accessibility while traveling, and that how that can be an issue. So it's a really hot button topic in the plus size community, because we just don't do it. We don't have those
Mhm.
experiences. And then we
Mhm.
get into this thing that I call the one day phenomenon, that I'm working on, like making a real thing, like writing
Yeah.
writing a thing. Um, and it's literally almost every single client that I've had has this thing where they're like, one day when I'm in the body I want, I'll
Mhm.
travel. One
Hmm.
day I'll wear these clothes. One day I'll whatever. And obviously travel fits into that, where like we put off and put off and put off doing these things and having these experiences out of fear and anxiety, which are valid, but at the same time, they're very limiting. And
Hmm.
as someone who is working on this very actively, like I'm seeking out these opportunities that are in other countries. I'm working on flying where I have friends all over the country now because of TikTok, and working on like the courage to even go to these places, like even within the states that I have to fly. And um, you can do it. It's so scary. It's so scary, but you can do it. If people give you weird looks, okay, you're never going to see that person again. Like, also, who does that? Like, what kind of a person is that? Why are you judging yourself? You should be judging that person who's judging you, because who does that? It's a whole thing. I'm on one, but do the thing.
Yeah, I'll take. I got you. I'll take the eye from an eye piece of that out of the equation, but I think in general, like what you're saying, speaks to a lot of people's experiences. And there's this idea that if you're going to feel judged and feel uncomfortable, then why even do it? And that's one. I totally understand that, right?
Yeah,
Person of color, obviously, we can relate, but the notion at the end of the day is, are you going to live your life for yourself and the things that you want to do, or are you going to live it for what other people that you don't know and will never know might think? The answer is obvious when you really like break it down to that simplistic view, but that's what matters, right? So go on those flights, go on those ships, which by the way, I've never been on a cruise yet, which blows my own mind because I love the water. But
let's go on a cruise together. I want to go on a cruise. I've never been on one either. We would
well,
kill each other, but it would be
let's
fine.
yeah, you have to be on the other side of the ship because I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, that's fair.
But let's take that one day, and I definitely stole this from somewhere, right? But let's take that one day and turn to day one, right? How do we get into the first step where we're actually making progress towards the things that we want to do? And that's the essential point behind all of this. You can get so much from traveling, and if you let the fear rule, which is something I tell my clients all the time, a decision or indecision made by fear is the wrong decision.
Mm, I
So
love that.
thanks.
Love that.
They do too. Um, but that's how I honestly feel. If that's what's motivating you, it's going to be the wrong decision no matter which way you go with it. So go in the opposite direction and see what life brings to you once you stop letting the fear take over.
Absolutely. I've never met anyone who has like had experiences like this, who has traveled, who like at the end of their life are looking back and saying like, man, I wish I had stayed home more. Like that doesn't happen.
Mm, nope.
We don't want to get to that stage of Erickson, okay? We want to be on the right side of it. We want to say I had no regrets. Do it.
Yeah.
Do the thing.
So, so start small, right? If you can't travel internationally, you don't have to. Go outside of your neighborhood. Just find out what it's like to be in a neighborhood next to yours, and then two out, and then three out. And as you start saving up your finances, go to a different state. It can be the one next to yours. You can drive there, you can fly there, you can do whatever, but push yourself to experience these new things, get all the knowledge that you can, get the new experiences, and start to realize that the world is bigger than the little bubble that you put yourself into. And I can promise everyone here that you will learn something from this experience. You may not recognize it right away, but you will definitely learn something.
Yeah, beautifully said. I would actually like to do, and maybe I'll do this on my own tee, but I would really love to do a plus size like travel tip episode,
Hmm.
which I think would be really beneficial for a lot of our listeners, and maybe likewise, because traveling as a person of color comes with a lot of issues, just
Yeah.
straight up. If you would maybe
You gotta
wouldn't
know where
say
you
the
can
same
and can't
thing.
go.
Right,
Hmm.
exactly. And like, so I think that that would be, if people are interested, let us know. But we want to, give what y'all want from us. But anyway, back to traveling. Just do it. Just at least one time. Do it one time. And if you don't love it, you never have to do it again.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I know it's going to be a lot of people like, oh, the finances or the time.
Mm,
your time's running out no matter what. So what are you going to fill with that, right? And money can come and go, but the memories are always there. Make those memories. That's always going to be what sticks with you at the end of the day. So why not go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is our episode for today. Travel. Do things out of your comfort zone, experience different cultures, immerse yourself, even in cultures within your reach.
Mhm.
But just do something that's going to help you one day look back and say, I did this. I
Mhm.
went here. I lived this way for a short period of time, because you won't regret it.
Yeah, and no one can take that from you.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. We outie. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your week. We will, of course, be back shortly with another episode, maybe 2 solo episodes, a little
Ooh.
special sauce on there. But we love you and we love to hear from you. So don't forget to follow us at the TikDocs. Email us, the TikDocs at gmail.com. We love to hear from you, suggestions, questions. Make sure you always address complaints to T. He will handle those. And we'll catch you later.
Right. Peace, love, and pizza grease.